Hey, it's Dr. Dunaway here with Soleus Strength, back today with a video, this time about running and how to prevent knee and foot pain while running, and 3 drills that you can use in your training to prevent that pain from getting worse. If you do like this subject about knee pain, foot pain, and running, please hit that like button so I have an idea of what you want to know more about. If you don't care about running, leave a comment below so I have a better idea of what you all would like to see in the future. And if you are experiencing pain, by no means do I want you to use this content as physical therapy advice. I always suggest reaching out to a professional in your town to help you better solve the problems. But with that being said, let's get into the video. So oftentimes when I hear or see somebody having foot pain like plantar fasciitis or Achilles tendonitis or knee pain like quad tendonitis, if I see that, there's usually some type of an injury preceding that, whether that was a year ago, a month ago, maybe several years ago. But what happens and what we need to realize and where we need to start is that when there's an injury to the lower extremity, the neurology and the feedback from that lower extremity up to the brain is impeded. It's called proprioception. That's how your foot talks to the brain. And every time you take a step on your run, if that feedback is not quick and sharp, now all of a sudden the brain is left with not the full picture, and now it has to figure out how to solve that problem in real time. And it does that by holding tension in other areas that otherwise should not be holding tension because there is some compromised tissue below. So one of the things I start with, regardless of if it's knee or foot pain, is some proprioceptive practice. And I say it's practice because really balance is practice, and it's a skill that if you don't practice, you won't get better at. And we can do this in a specific way that can really train this posterior tissue of the calf to really create some good robust springiness, because as we land, really the muscles that are taking or should be taking a lot of that stress when we're running are what's called these biarticular tissues, or these muscles in the back of the calf that span several different joints. And if those are operating well, like the soleus or some of these deeper compartment calf muscles that go down into the toes and support the arch of the foot, if they are really responding well, the knee, the hip, the back take a whole lot less stress over the course of a mile, 2 miles, 18, 26 miles. So what I'll have people do is just take a few steps in place to get an idea of what that stride length is going to be like when they're normally walking. And the balance starts in this position right here, as if we're just getting ready to toe off on this back foot. And most of the weight, we'll say 90% of the weight, is on this lead foot. And on that lead foot, I want those toes to kind of be splayed out, but I don't want to be gripping. I want a good and nice wide platform in that toe box to support that balance. In this position, a slight bend in the knee will bias more of those biarticular tissues as opposed to being bone on bone with a straight knee. We want those tissues to be absorbing this load. So in this position, I would call this a foot plank, because basically what we're doing is with 90% of the weight on this lead leg, we're biasing the weight towards this part of the foot, the wide part of the foot. And so our heel's not off the ground, but I would say it's unweighted. So if you imagine a scale being underneath the ball of my foot and my heel, the scale under the ball of that foot is going to be distributed a lot more of my weight as opposed to the heel. So in this position, if we just hang out here, you should start to feel that tissue on the back of the calf starting to just feel like it's working. And the balance training comes into play with looking straight ahead and then slowly shaking the head no, and then slowly shaking the head yes. And what we're doing by shaking the head no and yes is that we're disrupting the inner ear. So the inner ear and the eyes both play a big role in keeping us balanced. And so if we're trying to bias that proprioceptive input as we're balancing that lead leg, we can rely more on that proprioceptive input by slowly kind of changing or altering the input from one of these other visual or inner ear systems here. So in this position, for about 60 seconds in a warm-up, 90% of the weight on that lead foot, 90% of the weight on the forefoot of that lead foot, I'm just going to shake my head no, shake my head yes, and go back and forth like that for about 30 seconds. If this is hard enough as it is, I might just do this for 30 seconds, because the longer I hold this, I can really feel that calf start to create a lot of trembling. Now, what you might notice is as you're holding this and challenging these different systems, you might notice tension in the front of the hip or tension in the back or some of these other compensatory kind of strategies of the brain to keep you upright and supported. And if you do start to feel those strategies start to kind of come to the surface, stop, reset, maybe go to the other side, but that's going to be a good way to do that. So we got the head to disrupt that inner ear, and then we can keep the head straight and do that same thing and dart the eyes right and left, up and down. And again, as I'm trying to change my visual field, I'm relying on a lot more of that feedback from the foot to keep me balanced and not be doing this, right? So the goal with that single leg stance to start with will be really improving that neural feedback, getting up to the brain, so then the brain has better information to be able to create a good output or muscle engagement around whatever stance you are in gait. And so that's going to be the very first thing, really cleaning up and improving that neurological feedback from the foot up to the brain. Now with the balance exercise, I mentioned that soleus muscle. And the soleus muscle should be really absorbing a lot of that stress when you're running. And we can do that, we can bias that soleus muscle by kind of putting a kink in the knee as we do a calf raise. And so to condition this muscle to be really robust and strong so it acts as a good shock absorber, dampening that force coming from our ground contact up to the knee, hip, and back, this is a really good modified calf raise you can do to start to really improve that strength there. So with this modified calf raise, one leg's going to be elevated on the surface in front of you. The back leg, again, I often talk about the toe knuckles. So the big toe knuckle, meaning this point here where the big toe comes and meets the foot, and the little toe knuckles on the opposite side of the foot and the heel, they make a tripod. So as we're doing calf raises, I want to make sure those 2 points in the forefoot there are planted on the ground and you don't find yourself coming up and out like this or falling to the inside like this. So plant that tripod on the ground, and as that heel lifts, make sure the 2 front points stay planted into the ground. And what we're going to do here, the lead foot's up forward. I'm going to bend my knees slightly, and then maintaining that bent knee, I'm going to slowly push up straight towards the ceiling, as much plantar flexion as I can get, or come up to the balls of that foot as much as I can, and then slowly back down. The cadence I'll usually use with this is 3 to 5 seconds up, nice and slow and controlled, and 3 to 5 seconds back down, nice and slow and controlled. Notice I'm not shifting my weight as if I'm doing a step up. My body weight should be going straight up, maintaining that weight over this loaded leg. And the goal with this is not how many reps you can do, it's how slowly you can maintain that good cadence of 3 to 5 seconds up, 3 to 5 seconds down. A good goal for you to reach would be 20 to 25 on each leg with continual movement, being able to get through full plantar flexion here, meaning really up on those metatarsal heads or getting that heel really high off the ground, and then really slow back down. If that becomes easy, you can put a slant board here, or you can put a rolled up yoga mat or something like that under the ball of the foot, so you end up in a kind of a dorsiflex position to start with. And so as you come back down, your heel would drop lower than the support that you're on right here, and that would just make it a little more intense. But that's a great way to train that soleus. So lastly, we're going to do a split squat variation where we really train the quad tendon to receive a whole lot of load. Because as we run, that whole complex of that quad coming down, attaching that kneecap, and then attaching that tibia down here, that is under so much stress. And that accumulated stress, if that tendon can't absorb that stress over the course of many miles and then many days of consecutive miles, that's going to start becoming an issue. And so you can train this again in a split stance position here. And now I'm not going to do this again for reps. I'm going to do this for time, much like I did the balance drill. I'm going to do a little bent knee, and this, as a little side note, can also be a good position here. If I keep my torso upright, my knee has to go further forward. I'm not really trying to load the hip here because I'm not going to be running like this. I'm going to be running like this, so as I hit, my knee's going to come over the toe, so I want to train it like that. All of that weight over that lead leg, 90% of the weight maybe, over that lead leg. The back foot's just supported to help you with balance. If you do need some support here, you can use some plyo boxes or some dowel rods here to help you. Slightly bend the knee, allow that knee to go over the toe. And this could be one where we just start to do some calf raises here. That's a good soleus raise, trying to really make sure that I can maintain that good contact between the big toe knuckle, little toe knuckle. But if this starts to become easy, now what I can do with or without weight, I can start to do these little hops. And as I hop, I really try to stiffen the knee so as I land, I don't create this knee coming forward like that. I really want that quad to be able to stop that movement. So again, it's going to be much more difficult if you do have a slant board and that heel's raised, because as you step, as if you're going downhill, that knee really wants to come over the toe. So we need those quad muscles, and we need all these tissues in the front here to be able to prevent that from going too far forward. And the calf is part of that as well. So this split stance exercise is knee over the toe, and then you just kind of pulse, 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 pulse. And what we'll do is we'll do that exercise for, again, time, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and that will be our set. And we can accumulate sets of that as long as we're not having any pain with the knee. And then we can either advance that by, again, putting a slider board here where our heel's over our toes, so that knee's going to be driving down at a more severe angle. We can hold weight, we can go for longer, but that's going to be a great way to start to really create a strong quad that can hold up to that stress of that knee coming over the toe as we're running, especially running hills. So those are going to be those 3 drills. We're going to really focus on the proprioception. We're going to really have a targeted exercise to hit that soleus, and then we're going to have a targeted exercise to really improve that quad and all that complex of where that tendon comes down and attaches that tibia. That would be a great way to start training for robustness of these tissues to handle the stresses of running. But let me know what you think. What are your favorite exercises for running? Leave a comment below and let me know what exercises you really like. And if you want to see more videos over this topic or any other topic, leave your suggestions or your ideas below. And like I always say, don't just mend, transcend. Thanks.